The investigation into the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie has reached a critical threshold. In a secure laboratory in Florida, forensic technicians have isolated a single, unknown male DNA profile from a black glove recovered miles from the scene. It is a biological signature that does not belong to the victim, her family, or any known associate. This profile is currently being processed for entry into the National DNA Index system. The stakes are no longer just about a missing person in Arizona. They are about a forensic race against a ticking clock. But as the federal authorities move in, a deeper shadow is falling over the local command. Because the most dangerous element of this case might not be what was found in the desert, but what is happening inside the walls of the Pima County Sheriff's Office. 2 miles from the Guthrie residence, in a desolate field bordering the roadside, investigators recovered a piece of evidence that could define the trajectory of this entire operation: a single glove. Initial reports from the Pima County Sheriff's Office indicated a total of 16 gloves were collected across various search sectors. Most were dismissed as discarded equipment from search personnel. One, however, was different. Forensic analysis suggests this specific item matches the unique characteristics of the gloves worn by the subject captured on the Guthrie family's surveillance footage. On the 12th of February, the Pima County Sheriff's Office packaged this evidence and sent it via overnight courier. It arrived at a private laboratory in Florida on the 13th. By the 14th, preliminary results were in the hands of the FBI. The discovery of this unknown male profile coincides with another significant revelation: alien DNA found inside Nancy Guthrie's home. This is biological material that has been cross-referenced and cleared against her entire inner circle. Investigators are now operating under the high probability theory that they possess the kidnapper's genetic blueprint. The question is no longer what happened in that house, but who left their signature behind. But as the forensic net tightens, the structural integrity of the local investigation is beginning to fracture. The momentum of the weekend was punctuated by a high-risk tactical operation. On Friday night, a federal search warrant, authorized by a federal judge, was executed at a residence approximately 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's home. The scene was characteristic of a federal escalation, a SWAT team extraction, a mother and son removed from the premises for questioning, a third individual intercepted in a vehicle nearby. Yet, as of this moment, no arrests have been made. The individuals were released, but sources close to the investigation confirm that the search warrant remains a cornerstone of the current phase. Evidence seized from that property is undergoing a forensic audit. Why would a federal judge sign off on a SWAT-led search only for the subjects to be released hours later? The answer lies in the procedural gap between probable cause for a search and the evidentiary threshold for a kidnapping charge. This is a deliberate, slow-motion squeeze. While the tactical teams were on the ground, the internal climate at the Pima County Sheriff's Office was reaching a boiling point. The department is currently navigating a crisis of experience. Data reveals that of the 96 detectives currently on staff, 45 are classified as Detective 1s, the most junior rank. Within the homicide unit itself, the most senior investigator has a mere 3 years of specific experience in that field. This lack of veteran mentorship has created a palpable friction. The department has seen a mass exodus of senior personnel. In a case of this magnitude, one that involves a sophisticated abduction and complex digital evidence, the absence of institutional memory is more than a morale issue. It is a systemic risk. Internal reports suggest that the crime scene at the Guthrie residence may have been surrendered prematurely. While Sheriff Nanos has since admitted that the scene could have been held longer, the damage to the pristine nature of the site may already be realized. The investigation is now a two-front war, one against the kidnapper and one against the department's own internal erosion. But there is a third factor, a piece of technology so sensitive it was initially classified. For days, a Pima County Sheriff's helicopter was observed hovering at an unusually low altitude over the Guthrie property. It didn't follow the typical patterns of a search and rescue sweep. It remained stationary for 3-minute intervals, mere meters above the rooftops. The reason for this precise low-altitude hovering was a piece of equipment attached to the helicopter's skid, a device provided directly by the FBI. This is known as a signal sniffer. Its purpose? To detect the specific electronic frequency emitted by Nancy Guthrie's pacemaker. But the technology is notoriously temperamental. It picks up everything: smart appliances, wireless headphones, domestic electronics. The search for a heartbeat in a sea of digital noise has become the ultimate investigative gamble, and it has just led to a confrontation that the sheriff's office tried to keep quiet. The motion to understand the significance of the DNA evidence, one must look at the mechanics of the Florida laboratory currently processing the samples. Unlike standard government labs, this facility specializes in rapid DNA and advanced extraction techniques. In traditional law enforcement, a DNA profile is compared 1-to-1. Does the sample from the glove match the suspect in custody? That process is binary. However, the investigation is now moving into the realm of genetic genealogy. C.C. Moore, a leading figure in the field of investigative genetic genealogy, suggests that the alien DNA found in Nancy Guthrie's home is the most critical asset in the case. If this DNA is truly a stranger's profile, it allows genealogists to reverse engineer the suspect's identity through their distant relatives. Here is how the micro-reveals of this process function. The extraction. The lab creates a SNP profile, a much more detailed genetic map than the standard law enforcement STR profile. The comparison. This map is uploaded to specific databases like GED Match and Family Tree DNA. The match. The system identifies second, third, or fourth cousins. The build. Genealogists then build the family trees downward until they find a single male relative who was in Arizona at the time of the disappearance. This process can take as little as 30 minutes or as long as 7 years. In an active kidnapping, it is being treated with the highest possible priority. However, there is a legal bottleneck. The 3 largest DNA databases, Ancestry, 23andMe, and MyHeritage, have barred law enforcement from using their data. This means investigators are working with a pool of roughly 2 million people rather than 50 million. If Nancy Guthrie's family were to petition these companies to allow a one-time comparison, the suspect could be identified by morning. To date, no such exception has been made. While the scientists work in Florida, the Pima County Sheriff is facing a different kind of forensic scrutiny. In early 2024, the department's union conducted an anonymous vote of confidence. The results were staggering. Out of nearly 400 personnel, only one individual voted in support of Sheriff Nanos. The rest? A unanimous declaration of no confidence. This internal rot is not just a political footnote. It has direct implications for the search. A key aerial asset, a surveillance plane described as the most valuable law enforcement tool in southern Arizona, was grounded at the very moment Nancy Guthrie vanished. The surveillance plane remained in its hangar during the initial, most critical hours of the search. Why? Because the tactical flight deputy, a veteran with 17 years of experience, had been transferred out of the unit just days prior. The transfer was reportedly part of a pattern of retaliatory discipline within the department. The most experienced eyes in the sky were replaced by patrol officers with less than a year on the job. This decision may have cost the investigation the only window they had to track the suspect's vehicle in real time. The case seemed to be collapsing under the weight of administrative ego. Beat. Until investigators opened the file that had been sealed since November, what they found inside, what that sealed file contained, was a series of de-identified pings from the signal sniffer technology. Sources indicate that the pacemaker detection attempted over a week ago yielded several hits. However, the science is imperfect. The search is now complicated by a reality often overlooked in suburban kidnappings: the landscape. The area around the Guthrie residence and the field where the glove was found are frequented by transient populations. Sergeant Aaron Cross, the union president for the Pima County deputies, has expressed significant skepticism regarding the glove. There are a lot of these black work gloves in the desert, Cross notes. They are used by contractors, homeless individuals, and even search teams who frequently drop them out of their pockets. The FBI's confidence in the glove stems from a visual match to surveillance, but the genetic profile remains the final word. If the DNA on the glove matches the alien DNA in the house, the theory of a transient or accidental find is discarded. It becomes a forensic lock. The FBI has taken a more aggressive role as the relationship with the local sheriff's office continues to chill. Historical data reveals a long-standing grudge between Sheriff Nanos and the Bureau, dating back to an internal investigation in 2016. There are allegations that critical information, including details for a BOLO or be on the lookout alert, was withheld from the FBI for a period of hours during the first week. Furthermore, the decision to send DNA to a private lab in Florida, rather than the FBI's world-class facility in Quantico, has raised questions about jurisdictional ego. Is the department trying to solve this alone to one-up the feds? While the agencies clash, the clock is running out for Nancy Guthrie. If this was a targeted kidnapping, every hour the suspect remains unidentified increases the risk of disposal. If it was a random act, the suspect is likely still in the Pima County area, potentially watching the very media coverage this case has generated. The legal status of the investigation is currently described as active but pending. The federal search warrant executed on Friday indicates that a judge found a fair probability that evidence of a crime would be found at that specific location. Even without an arrest, the seizure of electronics and DNA swabs from the mother and son at that residence is a major procedural move. If the laboratory in Florida is using rapid DNA technology, they could have a match in as little as 2 hours once a suspect's swab is processed. The fact that Sunday has passed without an arrest suggests one of two things. The DNA from the SWAT raid did not match the samples from the house and the glove. The DNA did match, and the FBI is now conducting 24-hour surveillance to identify co-conspirators before moving in. There is also the matter of CODIS, the National DNA Database. The unknown male profile from the glove is being finalized for entry. Once it is in the system, it will be cross-referenced against every convicted felon and every unsolved crime in the United States. If the kidnapper has a prior record, the computer will return a name within 24 hours. If they do not, the investigation must rely entirely on the slower, more complex path of genetic genealogy. The procedural stakes are immense. If the Pima County Sheriff's Office is found to have mishandled the initial hours of the scene, or the grounding of the air assets, any future prosecution could be jeopardized by claims of investigative incompetence. The defense will argue that the alien DNA was simply the result of a contaminated, poorly secured crime scene. As we move into the next 48-hour window, all eyes are on the FBI's quality control process. The official confirmation of the DNA profile on the glove is expected by Monday morning. The signal sniffer data is also being reanalyzed by federal technicians in Washington. They are looking for patterns that might indicate the pacemaker's movement through the desert, a digital trail of a woman whose physical presence has been erased for over a fortnight. The next concrete event is a procedural deadline regarding the federal search warrant returns. Within the next 6 days, the government must file an inventory of what was seized from that Friday night raid. That document will reveal if they found Nancy's clothing, her pacemaker charger, or any physical evidence of her presence in that home. There are still 3 major motions on the table behind the scenes. 2 of them concern the jurisdictional control of the evidence. The third, that one involves a piece of surveillance from a second Google Nest camera Nancy Guthrie was believed to have installed, a camera the kidnapper might not have realized was recording. The hearing for these matters has not been set, but the tension in Pima County is at a breaking point. The deputies are exhausted, the detectives are inexperienced, and the sheriff is at war with the Bureau. Somewhere in this chaos, Nancy Guthrie is waiting. The forensic net is closing, but the question remains, will it close in time? The next update depends on a single match in a Florida lab. We will see what happens when that data hits the system. The case continues.